Hi there, Cancer ladies and gentlemen, and happy birthday once again. If you're new to my channel, I certainly appreciate both your viewership as well as your subscriptions, okay? So today, Cancer, I have an exciting reading I like to do for you guys here. I'm going to be utilizing today my Romeo and Juliet cards today in order to convey your message. But prior to getting into your reading, I like to ask you a quick question. Have you ever been star-crossed in love, betrayed, or mishandled, even for someone you fumbled? If you've answered yes to any of those questions, this reading is perfect for you, okay? Utilizing the attributes from Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, I'm going to share with you messages utilizing interpreting quotes here, and to match the quotes with a card in the tarot to give you a fuller explanation of where I'm seeing you at this time here. Now, this reading is valid until the end of July, giving you time with which to work with the energies. For those of you who are less familiar with Romeo and Juliet, and you might not have read it as of yet, here I'm going to go on and just give you a quick summary. Set against the backdrop of an ancient blood feud in Verona, Shakespeare tragedy follows Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet, two teenagers who fall into a sudden, forbidden love that defies their warring families. After a secret marriage facilitated by Frail Lawrence, their hope for peace is shattered when Romeo is exiled for killing Juliet's cousin, Tybalt, in a heat of vengeful passion. Desperate to avoid a forced marriage to another man, Juliet fakes her own death with a sleeping potion. But a catastrophic failure in communication leads Romeo to believe she is actually dead. He takes his own life at her side, and upon waking to find her lover dead, Juliet follows suit. It is only through this ultimate heartbreaking sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen, that the grieving Montagues and Capulets finally agree to end their senseless violence. Okay? So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to go on and just shuffle up here. And we're going to start off with sharing with you what I'm seeing as the overarching energy. And then I'm going to revisit your past, fast forward you with your present, and give you a probable outcome should you continue on as you are here. Okay? And you will find that in this reading, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see yourselves within the context of the messages that I'm about to share with you. If this reading resonates, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Share it with others to whom you think might benefit, ladies and gentlemen. And be sure to press that subscription button so that each and every one of you receives future readings. Okay, so with that said, let's just go on and just dive right on into this reading. Okay. We have rings, ladies and gentlemen. And with this card is a symbol of love. It's a symbol of union, a soul connection here. Okay? So it certainly shows here that, ladies and gentlemen, some of you might have, some of you might have married with this card, or got married, or just felt that you met your soulmate here that I'm kind of seeing here. So let's see what this quote says here. How well my comfort is revived by this. This comes from Act 3, Scene 1. Okay? And it is spoken, ladies and gentlemen, by Romeo. He is weeping on the floor of frail Lawrence's cell, completely undone by his banishment and the killing of Tybalt, when the nurse hands him a ring from Juliet. And tarot, ladies and gentlemen, the precise moment of sudden profound relief and emotional restoration aligns beautifully with two cards, ladies and gentlemen, both the Star card or the Six of Cups here. Okay? So it certainly seems that, you do have an energy in your reading from your past here. And you have that star here. And why is it a perfect match here, ladies and gentlemen? The star represents hope, it represents renewal and sudden influx, or a sudden influx, if you will, of divine comfort after a period of intense darkness and despair. Just as the figure of the card pours water to replenish the earth, for those of you who are familiar with this card, Juliet's token pours hope back into Romeo's desolate soul. The ring, ladies and gentlemen, functions as a literal beacon of light, breaking through his suicidal grief and restoring his will to live. It is a spiritual calm after the devastating storm of the tower, okay? The street brawl and his banishment, okay? Now, we also mentioned the Six of Cups here, okay? So if we are looking at the narrative mechanics, ladies and gentlemen, of the scene, the Six of Cups is an incredibly precise match. Let's consider the symbolism. The card represents, ladies and gentlemen, nostalgia, pure affection, and tokens of love sent from afar. It is traditionally depicted as one child passing a chalice filled with flowers to another, a pure gesture of comfort and emotional connection. So let's look at the connection here. The ring, ladies and gentlemen, is an uncorrupted token of their shared innocence and devotion, delivered by a messenger, the nurse, to remind him that their bond survives the chaos of the outside world. It is the ultimate symbol of emotional revival through a gift of love. So, ladies and gentlemen, can't you see yourself through this here? You know? And so for some of you, you feel that you could survive the chaos. Or this person from your past who might want to re-enter feels this way too. Understand that both cards capture the breakthrough shift from total despair to a sudden sweet reminder that you are loved here. So let's just add another dimension here. Some of you might have dealings with an Aquarius or either a water sign, Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer here. Okay? Because I'm seeing you, ladies and gentlemen, not only this person trying to return into your life, I'm also seeing you meeting someone new. But I feel that many of you are still stuck in the past here, ladies and gentlemen, and you might have to release your past here. You seem to be stuck a lot on past betrayal, lies, that might have happened while you were in some type of a toxic type situation here. Okay? Let's go on and just pull another card here, ladies and gentlemen, to just, flesh this out a bit more here. Okay, so we have the fabulous Romeo here. Okay. And so this card shows an idealistic type lover here. It shows that it was a lot of passion within your situation here that I'm kind of getting. Okay. And the quote reads here, "I defy you, stars." Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this iconic and devastating line occurs in Act 5 of Scene 1 here. Actually, it's Act 1 here. There's a misprint on this card here. It is Act 5. Okay. So, Act 5, Scene 1 of Romeo and Juliet. Right after Romeo learns from his servant, Balthasar, that Juliet is dead. And this movement, ladies and gentlemen, Romeo rejects the cosmic order. He refuses to accept his fate and he sets a self destructive course in motion. Okay? And in terror, ladies and gentlemen, this explosive turning point aligns perfectly with, guess what? The Tower and the Wheel of Fortune reverse here. So it certainly shows that you guys were, you were betrayed or something shocking happened in your situation here that I'm getting. With having that tower there. And with the tower, ladies and gentlemen, some of you might have dealt with, because the tower represents actually 4 different zodiac signs here. It represents Leo energy, Scorpio energy, Aquarius energy, as well as Taurus energy here. Okay? So I'm seeing that type of connection here with you guys. All right? So let's go on and just move right along. And Cancer, if you are enjoying this reading, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Share it with others to whom you think might benefit. And be sure, ladies and gentlemen, to press that subscription button, okay? So let's continue on here, okay? Because we referenced that the Tower is the ultimate match here. So there's no card that really captures the raw, destructive energy of this quote better than the Tower, ladies and gentlemen. Because the Tower is a break from the cosmic order. The Tower represents the sudden, violent shattering of a reality built on a fragile foundation, which is perhaps what your situation was built. When Romeo says, "I defy you, stars," he is actively attempting to tear down the cosmic, ladies and gentlemen, architecture of his life. He refuses to submit to the heavens anymore, opting to smash the tower himself. And then we have the sudden catastrophe. The news of Juliet's death is the lightning bolt that hits the tower. In an instant, his hopes, his future, and his sanity are completely upended. His defiance is the chaotic, desperate scream of someone falling from the burning structure, the structure of the tower, right? And then we have an archetypal match here. We have the Wheel of Fortune as mentioned, and the Wheel of Fortune reversed. Okay? So if the upright wheel represents the natural, ladies and gentlemen, inescapable spin of destiny and cosmic law, the Wheel of Fortune reverse represents a desperate, futile struggle against fate. It's all about fighting the inevitable. By defying the stars, the traditional symbols of fate in astrology, Romeo is attempting to manually stop the wheel from spinning. Now let's look at the downward turn. Unbeknownst to him, the wheel is already turning towards tragedy because of the misdelivered letter. His defiance isn't a triumph of free will, ladies and gentlemen. Rather, it is a tragic misstep that accelerates the downward plunge into total misfortune. But there is a tragically eloquent paradox to this. And trying to defy the stars by taking his own life, Romeo inadvertently fulfills the exact star-crossed destiny The prologue promised. He destroys the tower only to find the rubble was exactly where fate wanted him to land in the first place. Right? Okay. So let's go on and just select a card now, ladies and gentlemen, just to see where you are. Okay, when it comes to your past here that I'm kind of seeing here with this card. We have Juliet. Okay. And this card is all about inner strength and independence here, you know? And the quote here reads, "My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite" here. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, this is arguably the most breathtakingly romantic line in the entire play. This comes from Act 2, Scene 2, spoken by Juliet from her balcony. She is capturing, ladies and gentlemen, a profound spiritual truth about love. That true emotional abundance is a self renewing, infinite resource. In the tarot, ladies and gentlemen, this beautiful concept of balanced giving and emotional infinity matches perfectly with the Empress and also the Ace of Cups here. But the Empress is the ultimate match here that I'm feeling here. Okay, and with having that Empress there, ladies and gentlemen, some of you might have been involved or might be involved with a Taurus or either a Libra here with this card here. Because this is the ultimate archetype of unconditional abundance, boundless nature, and infinite fertility. Juliet compares her love to the sea, vast, deep, and exhaustible. The Empress represents the material, creative force of nature itself, which gives continuously without ever running dry. But there is a paradox of giving, ladies and gentlemen, because the Empress strives on the exact logic Juliet uses. The more life, love, and care he pours out into the world, the more her own spirit is enriched. Just as yours, ladies and gentlemen. This is a state of being completely whole and overflowing, deeply tied to the natural world and emotional luxury. All right. And this card also match when it comes to like an emotional type match. It matches perfectly with the Ace of Cups, water energy, Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. So if the Empress, ladies and gentlemen, represents this grand scale of this infinite love, then the Ace of Cups is the raw spiritual essence of it. It's the overflowing fountain. Okay? The traditional water weight Smith imagery for the Ace of Cups depicts a single chalice with 5 distinct streams of water pouring out of it into a vast sea below. It represents a spiritual source of love that is so immense it cannot be contained. It constantly overflows. It's pure emotional awakening. This card also signifies the absolute beginning of an overwhelming, pure, and divine emotional connection. Juliet isn't calculating or holding back. Her cup is running over, and she realizes that the act of pouring her heart out to Romeo actually generates more love within her. But this is the beautiful mystery. Both the Empress and the Ace of Cups mirror Juliet's realization that true love defies the laws of math. You don't have less when you give it away. The act of giving is what, kind of makes it infinite here. Okay? So now let's pull a card to represent, ladies and gentlemen, where you are presently. Wow. You have banishment. And again, Cancer, if this reading resonates, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, share it with others to whom you think might benefit, and be sure to press that subscription button, okay? So this is in your present, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, banishment is all about severing ties and also being protected from further injury here. So some of you might have severed ties with someone, but I'm kind of feeling, ladies and gentlemen, that again, this person is coming back into your life, or someone from your past and someone new. So you're going to have to make some type of decision here. And so let's go on and just get into this quote here. And for that offense, immediately we do him hence. Wow. So this stark authoritative decree is delivered by Prince Escalus in Act 3, ladies and gentlemen, Scene 1, immediately following the deaths of Mercutio and Tybalt. With a single sentence, Romeo's life in Verona is severed, casting him out from his home, his family, and his new bride here. So if this is not happening to you, this might be happening to your person, ladies and gentlemen. And this is exactly the reason why they're trying to come back into your life here. But I just want you to understand that in tarot, the moment of absolute uncompromising law and the harsh reality of banishment, it certainly maps perfectly to not only justice, but it also maps very well with the Three of Swords here. So we have air energy as well as a Libra, Gemini, Aquarius. So sometimes, like I said, somebody's going to return here wanting to kind of apologize here that I'm kind of getting for many of you here. But I'm kind of feeling that some of you don't, I feel that some of you might not really want this person or want to reconnect, while others of you do here. So we have a split here. I feel that whomever it is, it's going to be a surprise to you in some way here that I'm kind of getting. All right. And because this is the Ace of Cups, it could occur within this June, July time frame, because of course that represents the summer months. June, July, August. Okay. Let's move right along and give you your final card here, ladies and gentlemen, to represent what your future outcome might be here should you continue on as you are. So we have forced marriage here. Okay. And with this card, this is all about a loss of freedom. It's about excessiveness. And it's also about an interference here because you see three people. So, that's why you're going to have to make a decision. And I feel that someone is not really being truthful to you about a situation here. There's a third party that I'm kind of getting. Okay. So let's get on into this quote here and see what this says here. Sir Paris, I will make a desperate tender of my child's love. I think she will be ruled in all respects by me. Nah, more, I doubt it not here. Okay? And so with this quote, ladies and gentlemen, certainly, I just want to back up a bit here because I didn't really share with you what I'm kind of seeing here with that last card here, because we have the Suit of Swords of the law here with that Justice card here. And the figure of justice, ladies and gentlemen, traditionally, it holds a balance scale in one hand and a double-edged sword in the other. The prince weighs the situation. Tybalt killed Mercutio, and Romeo killed Tybalt, and delivers a calculated legal compromise. He spares Romeo the death penalty, but cuts him away from the city. And again, this is inescapable karma and accountability here that someone is going to have to fess up, or to which someone will have to fess up at some point. Because justice is a card of cause and effect. Romeo let rage dictate his actions, and the prince's decree is the objective, chilling societal response. It is the law stepping into the man of price, completely indifferent to Romeo's personal pain or even the secret marriage here. And then, as I said here, we have the emotional match. That's the Three of Swords. And while justice represents the hand that swings the blade, if you will, the Three of Swords represents exactly where the blade lands, right? We have an exile as a heartbreak. And tarot. Exile, separation, and banishment are fundamentally tied to this card. The traditional imagery, three long swords piercing a red heart against a backdrop of stormy rain, is a visceral mirror of what this decree does to the lovers. And then we have the severing of ties here. The prince's word acts as a literal blade, cleaning, slicing Romeo away from his heart center. This single sentence guarantees the isolation, the grief, and the emotional piercing that will ultimately unravel the rest of the play here. And then we have the bitter compromise. Justice seeks to restore order to a bloody street brawl, but because it operates on cold societal logic rather than human empathy, it's balanced. Sentence triggers the agonizing heartbreak of the Three of Swords, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? So getting back to our last card here, I'm going to go on and just reread the quote here. This is all about a forced marriage. It's all about a loss of freedom, excessiveness, and interference here. So as I said, there seems to be a third party involved, and a decision or compromise is going to have to be made here. So we have here, I'll reread the quote in case you guys forgot. Sir Paris, I will make a desperate tender of my child's love. I think she will be ruling all respects by me. Nay, more, I doubt it not. Okay? So this confident, controlling declaration is spoken by Lord Capulet to Paris in Act 3, Scene 4. Moving quickly to counter the grief and the chaos in his household after Tybalt's death, Capulet takes absolute ownership of Juliet's future, commodifying her love and kind of guaranteeing her total submission. In tarot, this display of rigid patriarchal authority, toxic control, and treating the daughter like property aligns flawlessly with the Emperor as well as the Four of Pentacles, ladies and gentlemen. So we have fire and earth energy here. The Emperor, ladies and gentlemen, is the ultimate archetype of structure, control, parental authority, and unyielding law. It's all about absolute domination here. So the Emperor expects total obedience from his subjects and his family. So you guys might also be dealing with this type of energy if this is not you. So when Capulet states, I think she will be ruled in all respects by me, nay, more, I doubt it not, he is embodying the absolute ruler who cannot conceive of his authority being questioned. Okay? It's like almost similar to the King of Swords, my way of the highway. Capulet is really acting from a place of traditional top-down power. He isn't asking Juliet. He is deciding for her, like a rigid emperor. He believes his word is law, and his insistence on absolute control over his domain sets up a disastrous, clash of wills here. And then again, we have this Four of Pentacles. If the Empress represents the concept of absolute rule, then the Four of Pentacles captures the anxious, possessive grip of a man treating people like assets. This calls us to call about, or the Four of Pentacles, ladies and gentlemen, represents hoarding and control. It is often called the card of the miser here, but Fundamentally, it represents a deep seated need to control one's environment, assets, and boundaries out of fear or desire for security. So I kind of feel that you guys, it seems that you might live at a distance from one another that I'm kind of seeing. And like I said, you're going to have to make a decision or a compromise to decide whether it is in your interest to go back with this person or to continue on with someone new. Of course, that's a decision that you would have to make. Now, Capulet is clutching Juliet's life in the exact same way, holding her future fast within his own palms, entirely blind to her own individual humanity. And, what I'm seeing here, and I'm going to go on and just close out this, both cards, in short, kind of highlight the fatal flaw of overextended authority. Capulet's absolute certainty that he can dictate his daughter's heart is a grand illusion, turning his protective parental instinct into a rigid cage, ladies and gentlemen, that Juliet will ultimately break her life to escape. So choose wisely, ladies and gentlemen. And with that said, this completes your reading. I certainly hope it offers food for thought. Be sure to like and share, subscribe if you've yet to subscribe, and should any of you wishes to have a more personalized reading, you certainly may access my website. Thanks so much for your time. Have a blessed day now.